Hey everyone, this is Robert, and thank you for tuning in to the podcast. And today we have another guest with me today. They've done a lot of work in the industry, so I've invited them on because they have a wealth of knowledge of what goes on in showbiz. So I'm gonna be speaking to Sharon Savene today. I really hope I got the last name right. It's kind of
Yeah.
been like, yeah, I know. On the podcast, I kind of butcher last names really often. So thank you for joining me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's a nice Sunday afternoon. Hot, but I mean, we're still here. So, yeah. I guess with that said, let's just get right to this. So first off, we could just talk about your beginnings, how you got started, and yeah, what's your little like background and whatnot.
Okay, that's you want to get more specific? Um, you want to know my start in the industry? Is that what you're asking
Yeah, pretty
specifically?
much like not so much like, when you were a kid, but like how you pretty much got your start or like what led you to getting your I guess foot in the door, so to speak.
Okay. I moved to LA to become an actress, and I had a friend who knew someone who professionally did extra work. Um, so I was told to go to, and I went and signed up at Central Casting to be able to do extra work, and then also at another extras agency in town, the name of which is escaping me right now. So I signed up at these two places to do extra work. But as I was walking out of LA casting now, Central Casting, I got a business card to go to like an informative meeting for actors. And so I went to it. It was at the Celebrity Center, which is a Scientology center in town. And I went to that seminar, and they recommended that the first step was acting classes. So I was like, oh, that sounds legit. That sounds like a good idea. So they recommended an acting school. Um, it turned out to be an acting school that was founded by a man who used to be in the Church of Scientology, but it was not actually a Scientology acting school, though that's the reputation. So I started at the Beverly Hills Playhouse, and I studied there, and I learned a lot about the industry. I made connections. I met people to do headshots and learned how to get my SAG card, and did a lot of independent films, all very much connected to the people in my acting class. And so I would definitely credit my start of acting to finding a really good acting class with people who work, and getting advice from them and expertise from them and learning from them. So that's really where how I got my start. Everything else is just hustle. You get headshots, you get new headshots, you work to get your SAG card, you work to get an agent, you work to get a manager, you look at whatever breakdowns you can see, or you get a hold of breakdowns that you're not supposed to see, and you try and get auditions, and you hustle for auditions, and you do your auditions, and you hope that sometimes you're the one that they pick. And if that's not working for you, because a lot of times that isn't working for you, you make your own stuff. You get your friends together, you write scripts, you shoot films. I mean, in some ways, the industry has gotten so much harder because no one really knows how to do anything anymore. I mean, there's it used to be that there was like a pilot season, and you would come into town for pilot season, and you would have representation, and you would go out for a bunch of pilots or things like that. That never happened for me personally, but I heard rumors that that was happening for people. And now it's like you're just as close to having a career by picking up your phone and shooting yourself talking about anything you're interested in. Um, so it's definitely like it's hard to say how I got my start, because I don't know that I have yet gotten my start. I've been here since the early 2000s. But Also, there are famous people who literally have never been to Los Angeles and they're making millions of dollars creating media content for other people. So, it kind of depends on what you're right for, like understanding really what you are right for. Because I mean, if you can just imagine trying to think of like two unrealistic combinations. Like if you can imagine the Mission Impossible movies starring Barbara Streisand, like it wouldn't really work, right? Because Barbara Streisand is not Tom Cruise. So understanding what your contribution is, what your potential contribution is, and not trying to say that Barbara Streisand couldn't do an action movie, but she couldn't do the Mission Impossible action movie. You know what I mean? Like you have to understand yourself. That's a very important component. But then when you kind of understand what your place might be, don't wait around for other people to validate that. Like show the world that that's your place, show the world that that's what you're right for. And that work, that practice will get you somewhere. And getting that somewhere, you might get picked up by someone else who can bring you farther. So I mean, I was just listening to a podcast the other day and I had an interview with the guy who started It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And he said that he and like, I don't know, like three or four of his friends wrote a script for the pilot and like the first couple episodes. And they got a camera at that point, from like a Best Buy. They just got a camera and they shot it. And then they looked at it and they edited it. And they're like, we could do better. And so they rewrote it a little and they shot it again. And then they rewrote it a little and they shot it again. They just kind of kept recycling what they had done until it got to a point where they were like, yeah, this is good. Yeah, this is good. And then now that he didn't clarify this part, he got it shopped around. He got someone to get it to all the studios to look at it. So that trial and error and learning is such an important part of creating any art. I really don't think people are born as talented artists. People are born with talent and then they have to do some work, they have to do some hustle, they have to be ready for opportunities, and then they have to be willing to do stuff that it doesn't pay and isn't fun and is hard work and you know, hopefully they get that right combination of somebody who's making something with money and they get a career out of it.
Yeah, right on. I definitely agree with all of that because it's like everybody is born with talent. It's just how can I say this? So it's the you gotta like work and there's a lot of training that's involved and there's a whole lot of like, hustling behind the scenes and it's getting you and just to get your foot in the door in the industry, it takes a lot of work and it's a huge commitment and takes a lot of time. So it's about learning to be patient with yourself and um it's a journey. And everything is kind of like it's a whole process. So yeah, I've kind of touched upon this in previous like, episodes that I've already done where it's like and it's often the quote is like is it luck or preparation meets success? Or maybe it's the other way around, but
Yeah,
that's kind
it's
of
like
accurate. Yeah.
success happens when luck meets preparation, I think is what it is. So it's like
Yeah.
you have to do if you really aren't you haven't honed your skills, right? You haven't trained, you haven't practiced, you haven't tried it out. Then if somebody gave you a starring role in a movie, you may or may not pull it off. You know, there are these cases, where they literally take some kid off the street and put them in a movie and the movie is successful. Like that does happen. But I am sure they had acting coaches and other people on the set really guiding and helping that little kid. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not like it's not like it just happens magically. we like to believe that it's some kind of romantic story and like someone just gets discovered and they have a career and that's how it works. But for the majority of the actors out there, that is not how it worked.
Yeah. I guess now you can talk about like um what got you interested into acting. Like you can, I think now would be a good time to, discuss like, what your life was, your story, because I think you've shared this with me like a few ish months ago or so. But yeah, you could just share about like, how everything was and what led you to, move to
Yeah,
LA and all that stuff. Yeah.
sure.
For
So,
LA.
why LA? So I grew up in Silicon Valley, and I I for whatever reason I feel like I was sort of like open to suggestions for how my life should go. And so I mean I remember as a really little kid, my friend and I had this joke. She'd seen a horror movie or something, and she'd heard somebody say it's curtains for you. And so my mom was talking to someone, and someone said, my mom said curtains, like she has curtains in her living room. And I said, don't say curtains. And then she said, my mom said, oh, well, she's right. Technically, they're draperies. And the woman she's standing with said, oh, well, someone's going to be a little designer. And so for years, I thought I was going to be an interior designer based on this like one conversation. Um, I had no other knowledge of other jobs I might want to do. I was kind of like I said, I was open suggestion. Well, in seventh and eighth grade, I did a couple plays. I had done a couple plays as a child and had been moderately interested in doing them. But in seventh and eighth grade, I did some plays that I actually really enjoyed doing. And I really enjoyed like the rush right before you go on stage and like kind of disappearing yourself while you're on stage and taking on this other persona. And I did this play in eighth grade. And after the play, the actors were sort of in front of the stage meeting their families because it was like at the school, it was a school play, I guess. And this random guy came up from the audience. He didn't belong to any particular actor in the play. I don't even know how he saw the show. And he looked at everyone. He so was like, "You all did very well. You all did very. It was very entertaining. Very good job." And then he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Can I shake your hand?" And I was like, "Yes." I was 13, guys. Just picture this. You're 13. He's like, "You are gonna be a fabulous actress someday." And then literally he walked away. I still think about it. I was like, is that guy like, I don't know, from the future? Like, who was that guy? Who knows? Anyway, so from that moment on, I sort of had the actor bug. I had the bite. I was like, oh, man. And he did not see me as an actress. So I spent all 4 years of high school auditioning and trying to be in his theater classes. And he never put me in even a small part in one of the school plays. So I was like, oh, I guess acting's not going to happen. I should pick something else. Um, so I went into marine biology, as you do. You go into something that you think you might be good at. And I went to college and I got a bachelor's degree in aquatic biology. And then I went to graduate school and I was miserable in graduate school. I was in the Department of Zoology. The department was lovely. I just was not in the right place for myself. And I was very unhappy there. So I did some soul searching and I was like, what can I do with my life? What do I want to do? And I went back to that 13-year-old girl wanting to be an actress. And so I decided, I was like, I'll just finish this degree and then I'll go and be an actress, obviously. So I finished my degree. I actually did a vagina monologues play. You know how in February everyone used to do the vagina monologues. So I did a vagina monologues play. And my friends that knew me from grad school, one of them's like, oh my gosh, you can actually act. I didn't think you really could act. I thought it was going to be terrible. I was like, thanks for your faith, Manuel. Um, and so then I auditioned for a play in the community. I didn't get a part, but I was like, they took me on as the makeup artist. And then one of the actors fell ill. And so then I stepped in and I was the actor. So it was, it kind of got my feet wet again. So there I was in Florida, in Gainesville, Florida. And coincidentally, as soon as that play finished, I met my future husband. And so I got sidetracked with that a little bit. I planned and had my wedding and got married. And then he knew, and he knew my plan was as soon as the wedding was over, we were going to move to LA so that I could be an actress. And so that kind of takes us back to where we got to LA, and I went to Central Casting and started acting school. So it wasn't like some people who were like, I always was joking around and I was always performing and I was always making people laugh, or I was always an actor. I didn't do like years and years of childhood musicals or even the school play in high school. I did like a little bit of acting, really like tiny little bit of acting in my undergrad, and I did a little bit of acting after graduate school. But basically everything else did, I did after I moved to LA. And I was relatively old for that. I was like 27. I turned 27 right after I got to LA. And I really felt like, man, am I over the hill? This is so late to be starting. I should have been a child actor. I should have all these credits already. And I do feel like everyone feels that way, unless they happen to be someone who was in commercials as a baby. Um, so yeah, so I kind of got to acting very indirectly, but always loved it and always loved performing. And still to this day, being on a set is my favorite place. It's so exciting. Driving onto a studio lot, like, just does something for me, even when I'm there to not be a performer. Um, and I've done a lot of behind the camera work. I've done writing and directing and producing and script supervisor and craft service and PA and key grip on very small projects. You can live this life where you do all different aspects of production, even editing. I've done a lot of editing. Um, and I do love being in front of the camera. But now that I'm a much older person, I really am, I'm willing to do the part that I'm willing to get. I'm willing to do a little bit or all of it. Um, so yeah, so I would say I did not have, say, a family that was in the industry in any way, for sure. I'm the only one in my family that has any desire to perform, um, for the most part. Like, well, that's arguable, I guess. But it was not like we had a bunch of people that were in the industry or that were even performers in my family. But it was just something that I wanted to do. And I feel like I've done it. I've done a good amount. So
Yeah. So I know that the industry had definitely changed, especially since we've been in this pandemic for like, I don't know, 3 years now. So how would you say the industry had evolved from when you first started out and up to today, really?
well, I mean, the first and foremost, I think when I started, they were still on the most part doing black and white headshots. And now I I think that there's very few black and white headshots out there. It's only there to like create a mood or something. Um, it was really, really hard to get into the Screen Actors Guild. That was just almost impossible. It was like the first gatekeeper thing. Um, I feel like agents and managers had, it's hard for me to gauge, but I feel like they had a lot more. They also were big gatekeepers. Like, it was really hard to get a legitimate agent or a legitimate manager. But then there were a lot of people out there who were not illegitimate, but just like not really doing much, or not really. It's how do you explain it? It's like if you think of the gig economy, you think about people who have like they're like, oh, I'm an Uber driver and I'm a Lyft driver and I do Uber Eats and then I sometimes pick up work as catering. Like you think of people who live that kind of lifestyle. I feel like the industry has become more that kind of lifestyle. I mean, actors were always in the gig economy. You were always like working for the next interview, working for the next job. But the other people, the agents, the managers, the casting directors, the producers, I mean, they had the illusion of a little more regularity in their work and a little more job security. So that aspect, I think, of the industry has stayed the same. But I do also feel like everything's a little bit more dispersed. So it used to be that there were like clear producing producers, there were studios, there were big companies making things, and they're still there making things. But now, literally, there's like production offices in neighborhoods. There's sets in people's bedrooms. Like I'm in my bedroom right now. You can't tell, but I'm in my bedroom. There's cameras everywhere in your pocket. So the industry right now, and the industry right now is not what it used to be as far as the product that's being made. So it used to be that people had television, and before cable, there was just the channel, like the network television channels. And cable opened up like probably 150 more channels. And now there's television, there's streaming, there's video games, there's um, ad production, there's marketing for websites, there's more industrials. It's like everyone is expected to have some kind of video thing, and every video that's produced has to have some kind of actor or performer connected to it, even if it's just a voiceover actor or performer, or even if it's an electronic bot that's imitating a voiceover actor or performer. So the industry has changed in that it's very like decentralized. I mean, at this point, I don't even know if people are trying to get onto a network show. It's like, oh, it'd be nice, but I don't know what kind of living people on network shows are even making anymore. It used to be if you got a national commercial, you could live on it for like 3 years. And now it's not even a full year's salary by the time you're done with it, unless you happen to be in a Super Bowl commercial or like a big campaign. So how the industry has changed is there are more opportunities for more people, but the opportunities are less life changing. And what I've always found is even people I know who have really significant acting careers who you would recognize, they still seem to struggle with lifestyle, like sustaining their lifestyle. So it's not like if you were successful at one time that you're going to be set for life. Um, and so, you know, it's 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 a hard industry, and there's some people who get very fortunate in it and have lifelong careers and a lot of financial success and really don't have to do much else. But for everyone else, you better have something else that you can do because it's expensive to get a career going and it is not guaranteed. So yeah, I would say the main differences between now and when I got started, or even just before I got started, are the gatekeepers are less significant because anyone can make anything anytime. But your chance of making a living and being an artist full time professionally, that seems to be much less likely. It's a little bit harder to get that. So I don't know if that what I'm saying is that the majority of content creators are ending up as hobbyists, like it's just their hobby to create content, or whether I'm saying that because that's probably true, or whether I'm saying like it's anyone's game and you may win it really easily just by chance, which is also true. But in general, if you want to be involved in any kind of media production, just get started.
Yeah. Would you say that it was also a very positive, like, life-changing experience with you just pursuing this? Like, did it also help you grow and be a better person in general? Just out of curiosity.
I I definitely feel like I'm a changed person by being involved in acting and performing and pursuing and studying. Absolutely, hands down. I mean, at least as significant, probably more significant than most of the therapy I've ever had in my life. Because when you are taking on other people, when you're taking on the role of another person and portraying them, it forces you to really identify your own things that you hold back on. So, like, one of the things I found in pursuing acting training is that you have to become very comfortable with the sensation of embarrassment. You have to become so comfortable with the sensation of embarrassment that you don't show any embarrassment, even if you feel it, or you feel it and you start to even be like, you enjoy it almost like you're so comfortable with it. You're like, oh, there's that thing that makes me not want to do this because it would be embarrassing and I'm going to do it anyway. So that's like a huge part of it. And in that, being in touch with your embarrassment, you learn a lot about shame. I i love Brene Brown. If you've ever seen her TED Talk or any of her talks, she studies shame in our culture and in individuals. And I just find it so fascinating how we create cycles of shame for ourselves that we will carry for years. And so embarrassment is like on the levels of shame. And then in processing through, in order to portray characters, you have to deal with what you do to yourself, how you criticize yourself, how you limit yourself, how you stop yourself, how you, I would say for sure, like one of the biggest thing that holds people back from being successful is their own attitudes about themselves. And I've known some performers or some people from class who they worked and they hustled and they wanted jobs and they tried to audition and they tried to make their own stuff and they did so much hard work. And realistically, they finally got success when they, in their heart, were ready for that success and kind of like knew they deserved it. They're like, yeah, I'm ready to be successful now. And then boom, then all of that hard work they did paid off. So it's not that the hard work was a waste of time and energy. They learned a lot along the way. They got connections, they met people. But when their attitude shifted and they knew that they were ready for success and they knew that they were worthy of success, then everyone else around them that they'd been hustling at saw that and wanted a piece of it, you know? So there's no way to like fake that for yourself, to feel worthy and to like let go of your shame and to be ready to feel embarrassed and do it anyway. There's no way to force yourself into that, but the process of studying, pursuing, getting a little part here, getting a little part there, making something for yourself and being willing to share it, that process gets you there. That process is what will lead you to more and more opportunities. So it's like I can say, oh, it's all about who you know. That's not wrong. You have to know people. And it's all about being prepared. That's not wrong either. You have to do some work. You have to know how to learn lines, how to step on your mark, how to create a character that doesn't leak through for yourself and doesn't seem like you're smiling and laughing at yourself. You have to learn those skills. You have to make those connections with people that are in a position to help you or that you've known for such a long time and they get to a position to help you. But you also have to work on yourself. You have to be able to like reward yourself for small victories and to let go of failures and mistakes and things that you might have done not as good as you could have or might have done completely wrong. And face all of that without crippling self-doubt and crippling anguish because every pursuit in life is hard. I mean, getting a graduate degree is hard. It's not like anything's just handed to you. Um, the difference is our culture sort of accepts that those things are hard, but in the arts they expect that you either have it or you don't. You either know people or you don't. They think of it as this very black and white thing, this very tangible thing, and it's not. It's fake. It's the wrong story. Um, and if you doubt that, look at anyone who's had sort of a revival career. I just think of Jason Bateman because I'm a fan of his and because it's just so interesting that he was like a child actor. He was starring in movies in the 80s. Like everyone knew him. And then he had like no career. I mean, I'm sure he was doing something, but like basically no career for 25 years, maybe. Very minimal work here and there. And now he's like directing and starring in Ozark and winning awards and has a podcast that's like in the top tier podcast and is like he's successful over again. And you think, well, what happened when he wasn't? And you're like, well, the industry or him or some combination of factors outside of his control kept him from having a career, or he's had struggles in his life. He had demons he had to chase out. He had things he had to process to be ready to have that sort of a uh what do you call it, like reanimation of a career that he has right now. um so I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like I have done a lot of hustling and I've done a lot of things at a certain level. Sorry, I hope you didn't hear that car go by. I've done things at a certain level, and for myself, I'm critical of that level that I got to, and I'm like, I wish you had gotten more famous. I wish you had gotten more successful. I wish you had done bigger things, Sharon. Like that would be me talking to myself. But also, I'm not dead yet. I don't know what the future holds. And there's a lot of naysayers out there who would say that women of a certain age are not going to get anything started. They're not in demand. There's nothing out there for them. But I don't I don't feel the hunger and desperation for it that I did when I was in my 20s and 30s. I really feel super at peace with the idea that I have ideas about what I want to create and I'm taking steps towards those creations. And if I get something that sparks interest in somebody and it turns into something bigger, fantastic. But if it doesn't, I want to be happy with what I'm creating. And I could go out there and I could do a bunch of student films and they would probably have roles for me. But my experience has been that that doesn't lead to a lot of reward for me. I'll do it when I feel like doing it, but I don't feel like doing it now. Does that make sense? So there's a lot to be said for if you're very new and just getting started, absolutely do everything, do anything. I mean, don't take your clothes off for free and don't sleep with people to get ahead. But in your career in front of the camera, be willing to be bad, be willing to be embarrassing, be willing to be the wrong person for the part, be willing to do a crappy version of an accent, say yes, do things for free, take on jobs that you didn't think you could do. When I took that job as the makeup artist in that play, I literally had lied on my resume and said I had makeup experience. And then when he asked me to be the makeup artist in the play, I literally had to look up online how to do stage makeup. I mean, I've done craft service without really knowing how to do craft service. I was like, okay, what's my budget? I guess I'm going to Costco. I did script supervising before I had no formal training in script supervising, and I just developed a system for script supervising because someone's like, "Hey, you want to come be our script supervisor?" And I'm like, "Okay." So have that willingness, no matter what age you are, to learn and get started. And then when you're doing the job, have your eyes and ears open, have your mouth shut, because you will learn as you go, definitely. And then when you feel like you have some competence, when you kind of know what you're doing, then work to get better at it. Find a way, find a class, find a group of people that challenge each other, find a way to do more practicing to get better at it. You know what I mean? It's very much like any other skill that you are learning and developing. It really isn't a mystery above and beyond that. It isn't like there's a wall that you break through and then you're on the other side of the wall. Um, one of my acting teachers used to always tell this story of being someone was in their agent's office, and there was a call that came in. The agent's like, "I'm so sorry, I have to take this." And here's the phone conversation with the agent and his client. "No, I'm sorry, they won't see you." "No, no, I did tell them." Yes, I explained that. "No, they won't see you." "I'm sorry, I can't get you an audition. I can't get you in for it." "No, I'm sorry. No, there's nothing. I can't even call them again. It's a done deal. It's not happening." And he hangs up the phone, and the guy who was visiting his agent's like, "Ugh, young actors." And the guy's like, "No, that was Robert De Niro." I mean, it's like at every level, you want more than where you're at, and you're trying to find somebody who can help you get there. That's the story of the industry. But at the same time, I'm arguing that you also have to be okay with where you're at and proud of anything that you've already accomplished. Because that part of it that people try to, throw to the side or be humble about, that part of it is so important. I'm going to tell you a little industry secret. You have to believe in yourself better than anybody else. You have to be ready to sell yourself like a true product that you believe in more than anybody else. Because if you don't believe in yourself that strongly, no one else has any reason to believe in you that strongly. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's such a hard thing to believe in yourself that much. I remember I had a good friend of mine. She actually is an Emmy winner and a child actress, and she was teaching a class, and I was helping her teach the class. Melissa Hayden, wonderful lady, such a sweetheart. And I was talking to her about that I don't get auditions. It's very hard for me to audition. People see my face and they don't quite know what to do with me. So I've never had a lot of auditions. That's just never been my problem as an actress, that I had too many auditions to prepare for. It was never my thing. But um, I said out loud to her, I was like, I mean, if I get the job, I know how to get there. I know how to do it. I know how to act. It's that I'm not scared of at all. And she didn't say anything right away, but then she said it like a week later. She's like, that is a very different Sharon saying that you feel confident in your acting ability is huge. Like, I didn't even realize that I made that shift at one point, that if someone gives me a role, and it can be literally any role, they could have to paint me with prosthetics and I could look like a totally different person. But if you give me any role that needs to be a certain way, I feel confident that I can deliver that product for you. I feel confident in my acting skills. Right now, this moment, do I feel confident in my ability to learn dialogue? No, because I haven't been doing it. I haven't been practicing that muscle, but I know that I can practice that muscle and get good at it. So my confidence, I've gotten to the point where I feel confident in my ability to do the job. And that's a huge thing that you have to get to in any career. Can I get in there and do the job? Then you have to understand yourself you can't look like Dom DeLuise, and nobody knows who that is. You can't look like trying to think of somebody that people would know. Sorry. You can't look like an you can't look like Brendan Fraser in The Whale, like with all those prosthetic on, and expect to play the lead in Legally Blonde. Okay. You have to have an understanding for your who you are, but then believe in that product of who you are and your place and your opportunities that you can accomplish enough that you are your biggest fan. You're ready to like do an elevator pitch if you get the opportunity. Do you know what an elevator pitch is? Have you talked about that? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't even know if that answered your question. I don't remember your question.
No, 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 don't, no worries. I just, we just kind of talk a lot. I mean,
Okay.
that's pretty much what I do here.
Right.
I have a guest, I ask a question, and then like 5 minutes, like I get like this really insightful just information about like, what goes on in the business and, all this other stuff. So it's I love having conversations like this because it helps me like really learn more about the industry, and it also helps, and I just love hearing about people's, experiences of like, um, what their first job was, screw ups, and, stuff like that. And, interesting little anecdotes that we get every now and then. So it's just, anything is like, it is what it is. We're just here to chat and talk and, um, learn about the business side of things. And so it's just pretty much like, I just love doing this. So, yeah. And talking about like there was one part that kind of stuck out to me earlier. Like you mentioned like having the ability to laugh at yourself. And yeah, that just really stood out to me because it is so important that like um because you take your craft seriously, and having the gift and the ability to, to laugh and have fun and just poke fun at yourself, it's like not too many people not too many people like it's something that doesn't really get past like a lot advice that I really don't. I mean, it's not that it's not shared often, but I feel like we should probably hear more about this, like being able to, like, oh yeah, like I've also, da 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 da, then, make jokes and make have the job, make the whole process so much easier. Like, I don't know if self-deprecation is the right word, but just, because I know that a lot of comedians also do this. Like, they poke fun at themselves and, just for lighthearted humor. I mean, it's kind of like a way to, just, as their way of, getting laughs out of an audience because, like, I guess it's what they say, like, what's the old saying? I guess misery, invites company, I think. But yeah, I think it's kind of like something that is super important. And it just really stood out to me. Like, laughing at yourself and also just, um, know that the process, that it is a journey, and it's not like it is not going to be like an overnight success. It's not like oh, I just met up with this casting director and I just got my foot in the door right off the bat. Like it takes, like, it's different for everyone, but no one is guaranteed like, an overnight success. And there's going to be moments where in your career you're going to have like, the dry spells or the slow times where you don't book anything for like weeks, months, even longer than that. So that's what I was saying earlier, being patient and learning, like hustling and yeah, what's going on in the industry. And it's about also like it's who you know and who knows you, and making just these solid relationships and friendships with other actors, clients, what have you. So I think it's just all very crucial pieces of advice to anybody if they want to pursue something like this, or just in any creative endeavors in general. Doesn't have to apply to acting. It could just be anything that you set your mind to and your heart, it's like if it's something that you really, really love doing, then by all means, just go for it 100%. That's just my that's my own 2 cents. I mean, you can take it with a grain of salt, but that's just pretty much, my little TED talk. So yeah,
I
take
mean,
that.
I definitely, so just another lesson I learned from acting class and seeing
Mhm.
other people in pursuit of this career, right? Some people did not take their studying seriously enough. Sometimes they were basically their life was a hot mess. They were addicted to drugs or alcohol. They were unable to keep jobs. They had no money. They were like driving a broken car, like different levels of mess in their life and disorder. And some of them just sat around and smoked pot all day. You when you're in an acting class, there's a lot of different characters in the acting class. And so for some people, the lesson is work a little harder, be a little more organized, be a little more structured, and work, like do the what you need to do, like eat better, exercise more, rest more, clean up your house, get a job with real money. That could be the lesson for some people. For me, I came from a background of 2 college degrees, married, um, more of a like Virgo organized type person. And for me, my bigger problem was my inner critic telling me all the time that everything I did wasn't good enough. And so my lesson that I had to learn for myself in acting class was come here to play more, have more fun, take it less seriously, be willing to be bad, be willing to be wrong more, take chances. And somebody was talking about, I think it was my acting teacher, Alan Williams, one of my first acting teachers, really my first real acting teacher. He said, no one is a better actor than kids in the backyard playing. And I was like, his example was, you're hanging out with like an 8-year old and they go, oh, look, a spaceship. And you look because they're so convincing that there's a spaceship right there. So when he used that to like say, like, don't take this thing so seriously. And you think of people who do entire movies in front of a green screen and then they put the background on and you believe it. They were not surrounded by anything that you are seeing them surrounded by, and yet you believe it. So one aspect of being a talented actor is getting your shit together. Sorry, I said the S word. And the other aspect of it is be willing to like just have fun with it. Be open to being too much, be open to being enough, be open to making the wrong choice, and trust your directors and other people around you to like rein you in. So, along with knowing yourself, know which lessons are for you and which lessons aren't for you.
And that's good. That's really good. I don't think there's anything I can add to that. Yeah. Um, so I know you probably mentioned quite a few people already and some of the projects that you've worked on. So who are some of the people, like, who would you say really helped guide you? I know you mentioned, your acting coach, but who would you, if you were to also give like shout outs to like anybody who's like also uh really put your like helped you on the right path with your career and just pe- anybody that you considered still considered to be very very good friends, it could be family, your other colleagues and people that you who coached you and stuff, and also the projects that you've worked on that you've also considered to have be like a lot of fun that also have a major soft spot in your heart that was also like just a really great experience in general. So just favorites,
Favorite moments.
yeah, in your career and like the people
um,
who have inspired you. Yeah, just it's the floor is yours. Just
Yeah.
name
I
drop. Like,
mean,
just give all the shout outs. We're
so
at that point
well,
at the
I
where,
will shout out to
yeah,
someone who's been on your program,
yeah,
Veronica Alechino. You interviewed her. So
oh yeah,
she has been she's been so sweet to me and such a vote of confidence and so much has always believed in me. And it was started out as such a simple thing of I met her. I was helping a friend of mine with PR, which is public relations, and she was promoting this play that Veronica was in. And I met Veronica and her husband Tim at that like opening night party, and we found out that we were all at the Beverly Hills Playhouse studying, not in the same class, but at the place. And so she asked me at the time, I think, to help her learn lines or something. So she would literally like pay me to help learn her lines, just to run lines with her, which was very generous of her at the time. I needed the money and she had it, and a friendship grew there. And she, I've helped her with that transition from paper submissions to electronic submissions here and there. And she's just always been really gracious and reinforced for me that I was talented and that I was good. And so I have so much love in my heart for her and for Tim and for all that they have accomplished. And you know, some of the lessons I've gotten from Veronica is, just being being a little bit she called it the friendly stalker. She's like, hi, how you doing? I'm just here to drop off my headshot. Would you like, I brought you a little something. Like you're friendly, you're not being rude, but you're like making sure they see you, making sure they hear you, making sure that they know you're there and what you're there for. And so I love her for that. And what she has done for me on top of that is like she does a lot of plays. She goes out around town, she does a lot of plays, she loves doing plays, and she also works. And so I think it's been 3 or 4 times that she has been booked to do a play and that she's gotten like actual paid on the set work for some days that she should be doing the play. And every single time it seems like she's like, oh, don't worry, I have a girl. And I go in and I just learn her lines. And with very little rehearsal, I just step in for her for the play. Now we're alike in type, but we are not physically alike. I am taller. She is more petite. I am wider. She is thinner. We're not exactly the same age, but it's a close enough fit that so far it's worked every time that I've been able to step in and do plays for her, which is kind of a beautiful thing for me because I don't love to do the rehearsal time of a play, but I do love to perform in a play. So it's like she gets the best of getting to do the play as long as she needs to. And then if she has to step out to do another job, she doesn't feel bad. And I get the best of like kind of getting thrown in and being able to do a play without as much like labor. So I love them. And then I want to shout out, of course, to some of my acting teachers I've had. My first acting teacher, Alan Williams, says nobody ever thanks their acting teacher in their Oscar speech. That is never who's named. And so I always thought to myself, if ever I win an Oscar, I'm going to name my acting teachers. So I'll just name them, Alan Williams, who's passed away, Gary Imhoff, Richard Lawson, Milton Kitselis, Alan Barton. Those have been all my LA acting teachers. And I wouldn't feel confident in my acting skills without a lot of their very timely and pointed and astute critiques. Actor friend wise, I'll never forget this time that I was running the red carpet for an event at the Playhouse, um, and there was an actor there who, I'll describe him. His type is he's a big guy. He's a big, significant person, and he had gotten a recurring guest star or a featured player on Becker, which was a Ted Danson series for a while. And so we're working the red carpet, and I said to him, I was like, "Listen, I can you walk our red carpet as like a star?" And he was like, "I don't even I don't even have much. I haven't done much. I was like, no, just do it. You're to own it. You're like a series regular on Becker. You're ready for it. So I encouraged him to work this red carpet. And then a couple years later, he was one of the main characters on Lost. And I'll never forget that, like, you know, everyone starts out in the position of being relatively unknown and then gets a little something and maybe a little bit something more before they get the big piece of pie. You know what I mean? So I'm sure he's had moments where the paparazzi were following him at this point. But I always think of that. I think of, and so I'll just say, it's his name is Jorge Garcia. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He does a lot of, he's done Hawaii 5 and he's done that more recent series that was about, I can't remember, it was Once Upon a Time, I think, or something like that. It was like a fairy tale, modern fairy tale series. Anyhow, so he is just the sweetest guy and so humble and so kind. What other, like, on the set experiences? I used to act in a web series, a Star Trek web series, and so a shout out to Rob Caves and the Area KT Productions that used to produce the web series. So if anyone's dying to see a whole lot of Star Trek fan film with my face in it, you can find Star Trek Hidden Frontier and Star Trek Odyssey and Star Trek Helena Chronicles. Um, and then, just I'm trying to think of like what other sort of favorite folks. I mean, I have a career wife, I guess. I have a friend who she and I have been in acting class. We were in acting class right at the beginning together, and we still support each other so much. And she has been doing a lot of industrials. She's been doing a lot of hosting stuff, and she also has a really good following on Instagram. She puts up a lot of Instagram and TikTok videos, and her name is Alyssa LeBlanc. So I got a shout out to my gal Alyssa, who again is just like a constant, consistent believer in me being able to have a career and being talented and being beautiful and being ready for those opportunities. And I feel the same about her. I think she's amazing. Um, I guess, can I plug my what I'm doing right now? So I am working, like working a real job. I have a full-time job. I'm also about to go back to school and get another degree to be able to get an even better side gig and even better side hustle. Um, but what I'm doing for work is I work at a hospital as a lactation consultant. So I had my kids and I breastfed my kids, and I started out as sort of like a peer supporter for breastfeeding for nursing kids. And it became a career, became a lactation consultant. And so in working, I have developed ways of teaching how to breastfeed that are very unique. And so I started an Instagram and TikTok identity called Sassy Lactation. That's Sassy lactation, Lactation. So I have just short videos teaching techniques to help people with nursing their babies. That's one of my projects. I have a writing partner named Keith Nelson, who's a professional stand-up comedian. He's been a stand-up comedian for, gosh, it's got to be about 30 years. He does a lot of cruise ships. If you're on a cruise ship and you have an opportunity to see Keith Nelson, I highly, highly recommend it. He is hilarious. And he and I have written 2 full feature-length scripts about very serious characters in very serious situations, even though he and I are both fairly naturally funny. It's kind of ridiculous. So he's my writing partner. And so his constant enthusiasm, and he always calls me a genius, has been immeasurable for my career. Um, who else do I want to talk about? Oh, my friend who got me into lactation, I guess, who herself has an amazing story that I would love to turn into a feature film, to be honest. My very, very good friend, my very best fan in the world, my friend Hetty. She's amazing, and she will laugh and she'll say, "Oh, you're such a good lactation consultant. Oh, you're just so amazing. You're so wonderful. I'm so glad you got into this career. But you're a performer, you're an actress. You should be famous right now." And so it's nice to always have her enthusiasm and support. So that's all I can think of right now. It's a lot of people. Shout out to everybody. Oh, I guess I should shout out to my actual immediate family, my husband and my two kids who put up with all of my different hats that I wear and all of my different craziness and moods and having like studio setups in the living room, in the guest room, in the bedroom, whenever I need them.
Mhm. Yeah. So right now, I know you mentioned that you got into, oh man, what did you,
What do you call
yeah, because,
it?
yeah, like, you just mentioned all of this stuff, like, and what you're doing right now and just everything. So talking
Oh,
about,
honey, you
yeah,
don't want to hear all I'm doing right now. I
oh
mean,
man,
you don't want to hear all that I'm doing right now. Do you want to hear it? I can try and do it quick. So,
just, yeah.
yeah. So, I'm working the full-time job at a hospital doing lactation consulting. I'm about to start a master's of science in nursing at UCLA. I am writing a novel. I need to type it up. It's literally handwritten and in notebooks, and I have to type it and fill in the missing pieces. But it's a true story about two pirates in the Caribbean in the 1700s. Actually, the turn of the 1600s to the 1700s. I have a feature film script that I wrote with my friend Keith that I have one more revision I'd like to do of it and then continue to shop that around. I have I have a condo and I'm the president of the condominium association. I'm in an all women's a cappella barbershop harmony chorus of which I'm actually just transitioning out of being the president of that chorus, but we perform. And so I've got music to learn for that. I'm currently taking voice lessons, which I've taken with my beautiful and amazing voice teacher. How did I not think of him? Greg Saffel, who just recently relocated to Portugal and teaches voice lessons from Portugal over the internet. It's amazing. He's wonderful. Voicelessonslosangeles.com if you want voice lessons. So Greg is amazing. So I take voice lessons. I take piano lessons with beautiful and talented former chorus member Kate Kohler, who is teaching me piano. I gosh, what else do I do? I'm about to graduate. I just finished. In order to prepare for going to nursing school, I got an associate's degree in pre-nursing, so I'm getting ready to go through a graduation ceremony for that. I'm a Girl Scout leader. Luckily, the Girl Scout troop is being run very, very well by other parents right now. But I started a Girl Scout troop that my daughter is active in, um, and I do still participate with that somewhat. What am I forgetting? Probably about a dozen things. But yeah, I'm a busy person.
Very much so.
Oh yeah, and then I'm also shooting videos for my web program, my lactation, sassy lactation. I also have an idea for a podcast that I've done a couple episodes of, but I haven't published yet. But they're sort of in the can. I got to make that. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with them.
Yeah.
Which is talking about mental health journeys as inspired by episodes of Grey's Anatomy.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I have a lot of stuff that I'm working on. As my friend Alyssa says, I'm a manifesting generator. That's my human design type.
Yeah. Because, like I mentioned earlier, with this pandemic, it's like everybody is suddenly starting. Like, I seem to also notice this, like, especially when it comes to voiceover, like, everybody's been like, it's been a really, really busy time. Like, especially with, like, I think after 2020 came along, like, VO just kind of started exploding. And then, like, with everything opening back up with film and TV and theater and stuff, it's like, yeah, it's not like we're slowing down anytime soon with this. that's been going around. But
Yeah.
I was also gonna ask, like, how has it actually, like, with this pandemic and everything, like, how has it affected, like, I don't want to say your life, but how has it affected, like, with work ethics and just everything going on around you in general?
I mean, I'm in a very unique position that I was literally working, I was a work at home person for almost 15 years because I was the apartment manager. I did go for a long time into an office and help work at a theater company that my acting school sort of had. Their nonprofit arm was a theater company. So I had various jobs, but I spent a lot of time at home for a lot of the early 2000s to the mid to the 2020 to the end of 2019, right? And then I got this job in a hospital. That was like new to have a job that was a full-time job that I could go and show up at every day. And then almost immediately, the pandemic happened and I became an essential worker. So everyone else started being at home, and I, for the first time, was going to work, um, which is a very strange situation. And so for me, the pandemic, I mean, being in a hospital setting through the pandemic was, I'm just going to say it was extreme. It was extremely stressful. It was extremely tiring. It was extremely scary. It was it was a lot. I mean, I remember, you're driving to work and you're like, could I catch an infectious disease that might kill me today? And also thinking, well, I'm so lucky in that I'm privileged to be healthy. And even if I get this disease, I'm likely to recover very well from it. And yet at the same time, I mean, I remember when you knew COVID was a thing, but there was no test for it. You knew COVID was a thing, but you didn't know if someone who had it would be sick or not. So like anyone could have it. Um, and there was, I remember when there wasn't a vaccine, and I remember when literally the hospital didn't know how to prevent the spread of it, and we were going to the hospital every day. Um, so as far as how it's changed the industry or people, like I saw people who were used to always being out and about being stuck inside and the toll that that had on their mental health. I saw the effect that virtual school versus in-person school had on my kids and their personalities and their moods and their ability to socialize with others, and the strain and the stress of being confined to the house. Like they were stuck at home and they weren't used to being stuck at home ever. And um, as far as the industry, I mean, in some ways, it created a lot more options. Like the fact that you and I can do an interview show and we've never met in person. The fact that you can, I mean, when I did the web series, we did a lot of interesting things because the web series was all done on green screen and we had to work around a lot of different actors' schedules. And so you would have scenes that were with a person you had never met. That happened. I'm used to that. I'm used to that sort of weird, disconnected creative process. But I think that the pandemic made it more real for the industry at large. So the fact that auditions have moved to self tape so that casting directors don't even necessarily need offices, the casting directors just need a place to communicate from so they can work from home. And actors don't need to drive across town and find parking and feed the meter and worry about getting towed because they're in the waiting room too long. And the nerves of having to stand in front of a casting assistant and being told to slate and bring it. And instead, they have to have their own little studio at home, and they have to have someone who reads for them that they found, and they have to have lighting setups and backdrops like I have here. Um, you know, it's created the same thing I was talking about earlier. It's created this ability for it to happen anywhere, but also like everyone has to have the skills to do everything. Like everyone has to understand lighting now. Everyone has to understand uh setting up, what do you call it? Like set design. That's the word I'm thinking of. Everyone has to understand set design to a certain point, even if it's putting a backdrop up. Everyone has to understand uh transferring video files from one place to another and how much size that is and will take. You know what I mean? Like actors used to just like drive somewhere, park, and show up and do their lines and hit their mark, and that was it. And now we have to be able to kind of do everything, or we have to be willing to pay someone else who knows how to do it. Um, so I feel like on the one hand, it is harder to get started because there's more that you're responsible for knowing. But on the other hand, it's easier to get started because things are cheaper and the information is readily available. So again, in what we used to select for is like if you had a certain look or you were a certain type or you had a certain ability to transform yourself into oddball characters, that was what got a career going. And now it's a combination of that and the ability to create and to learn how to create and to create at a high enough production value that the production value doesn't take away from your performance. And so that's a lot more that you have to understand and a lot more that you have to learn. Um, I guess I guess it's sort of meaning that you're getting smarter people in the industry. That's a backhanded compliment to everybody. I feel like if you really don't know how to do anything but stand in front of a camera and look good, you're going to have trouble. Whereas that didn't used to be the case.
Oh yeah. So from the sound, I mean, it definitely does sound like you've managed to like. I mean, even though that this whole situation has really been like nobody really expected it. A lot have managed to. I don't want to say get used to it because like they've managed to work or find a way around, under the worst circumstances.
Yeah,
Like,
I feel like COVID made everyone in the world into a hustler, like an actor has been a hustler. Like actors are used to like, what job can I get? Can I still go to auditions? I'm going to call out. I have an audition. Like that lifestyle of an actor who's like in an acting town like LA or New York, that we've known the COVID life for a long time. We've known having nowhere to go and being stuck in your house and like trying to think of what to do next. Um, but now the whole world knows it because there was so many people that had to change careers or change jobs, like all so many people that couldn't go to their jobs, like restaurant workers or most of the service industry or office workers even. So it's interesting because now everybody has felt a little bit what the acting and performer lifestyle is and that sort of industry gig economy lifestyle is, that I guess now everyone also thinks themselves as a performer, which is why we're seeing just so many different types of productions available on streaming services and on YouTube and self-publishing sites, things like that. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting couple years for sure.
yeah. Um, I guess since you've mentioned that you're doing like a podcast for like mental health, do you have like any advice? Like just anything that comes to mind? I know
So
that they're not published yet, but just what is
yeah,
the main thing that you want to get off
so
your chest?
so I before COVID, before I found this career, before I even left apartment managing, I had this situation where I was in this very bad mental health state. I won't get into the details of it, but I was in a really dark place. I was calling myself functionally depressed. where if I had to do something like get my kids to school or get my kids home from school or make them a snack or basic care of my children, I could do it. Or if I needed some basic care for myself, I could do it. But I really didn't do anything else. I really was just like literally lying in bed, crying or sleeping at all other times. And it was really bad. And as part of me getting through that sort of dark time, I refound Grey's Anatomy. I had watched it when it first came out for a couple seasons or so, and then I lost interest. And then I found it when I was in this dark mental health place. And I don't know why it connected so deeply with my very depressed self, but it did. And it helped me to like I like went to a therapist that was really wonderful, and she helped me deal with a lot of the stuff that was causing problems. And along the route of that, one of the things that I found, I was talking about earlier, is for me at least, my relationship to shame was that I would feel shame about something, and then I would cling and hold on to that and punish myself with it and identify myself by it forever afterwards, just feeling horrible and beating myself up with shame. And shame, I'm using shame as like a blanket term for a lot of other minor, like it's an umbrella term for all of these negative things we do to ourselves and based on our actions or our inactions. And so, my advice to everyone who is struggling. So, if you're living a great life, like, don't change. Okay, enjoy your life. But if you're struggling, take a look at what it is that you have or haven't done that you feel shame about. Because it probably wasn't that bad. And even if it was that bad, even if, God forbid, you murdered somebody or or permanently disabled somebody, and there's no way to undo that. I promise you, your feeling shame does not bring them any benefit. Your feeling deep and paralyzing shame doesn't improve the world in any way. And please don't be confused. Like, I am not saying that you need to forgive yourself or forget, or that everyone should let it go, that this horrible thing that you may or may not have done did happened. What I'm saying is the actual act of the shame doesn't serve any real positive purpose. And so if you can find your way to letting that shame go and continue with positive purpose, that will better help anyone who was wronged, any damage that was done, any true problem. Or if what you're shameful about didn't actually hurt anyone, and yet you continue to hold on to that shame, letting that shame go and finding positive purpose to your life will allow you to become the person you're actually supposed to become. So that's my step one message.
Yeah, right on. Um, anything else that you want to discuss? Like, I don't know, any upcoming um projects, or I know you mentioned a couple, but
I
like
have a couple
anything that you
different
want to,
things. I mean,
yeah.
for right now, like my lesson to myself. So if I was to give myself a lesson, I would say I'm hanging on to some things a little bit too, with a little too much preciousness. Um, and it is keeping me from doing the things I actually need to do. So it's like my own little thing. So I could pick a day where I was going to spend a solid, 3 or 4 hours revising the script that I wrote with Keith in one sitting. And if I did that, it would be done. I really do feel like it's just like one more version away to feeling like, okay, that's done. The typos are out. The logic of the story is working. The characters' names are in the right places. Um, but I haven't done it. And we're shopping around a script that I know has like some problems in it. And then if I got started working on my book, I could get like a couple chapters out that I could share with people. So I I I have all sorts of upcoming projects that I hope that I get to. But I'm the only person keeping me from doing them is one, myself, and two, the distraction of school that I'm about to enter into for the next 2 years. Um, but at the same time, I am trying really hard not to do that with this lactation thing. And I invite anyone, whether you're a breastfeeding mom or not, go ahead and take a look at Sassy Lactation because they're silly little videos and they're not very long. And I think they're entertaining for anybody. Um, so I'm at the one hand, I'm being precious about all these things that I feel are maybe more significant, but I'm trying very hard to be kind of throwaway and just get it done and just put it out there for the project that I am currently working on. And I'm proud of myself for that. I'm proud of myself for letting myself put something out that's not the best quality I could do or the highest level. It doesn't include the extra video clips I would put in, that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm just getting it out there. So I could use a lot more just getting it out there for sure. Like 120%. That's what I need more of. I need somebody to sit and be my Ed McMahon or my co-star for, and I would do that Grey's Anatomy podcast if I had like one other person to hold me accountable for it and like to show me how to publish it, like what they felt the best way to publish it was, like then it would probably be getting done. So there's a little bit of, I guess the lesson I'm going to add in now is like find your people, find your group that's going to encourage you and keep you keeping on and make you share the stuff you're creating and make and tell you that it's good enough and it's great even if it's not as perfect as you can get it. So that I think is also an important lesson for everyone is they say it's who you know, right? That's the big thing in Hollywood. Well, it's all who you know. Who you know are the people who are around you right now who are pursuing with you. And you never know if any of those people are going to become somebody. Like I was in beginner acting class with Whitney Cummings. Whitney Cummings has produced 2 network comedy shows, maybe more, probably more at this point. She's done Netflix stand-up specials. She's friends with Chelsea Handler. She's legitimately a famous person right now. And I remember being in acting class with her, and she was talented in acting class. I always thought, wow, she's a really amazing actress. Though I'll tell a little Whitney Cummings story. She doesn't talk to me right now anyway, so I don't think she cares. Um, she was doing a scene, and in the scene, she was just like crying and crying, and all of us were like baby actors, and we were like, oh my gosh, she's like so amazing. She could just cry and cry. She's so amazing. And I worked stage crew, so I was like a person who helped move the furniture to set up scenes or stuff. So as I was tearing down her scene and she was getting her critique, and she'd done this amazing scene where she'd been crying and crying, I looked backstage, and I swear to God, I saw a cut up onion. She had used a freaking onion to make herself cry. I was like, oh my gosh. So I learned the lesson I learned from that is not that somehow Whitney Cummings cheated, because lots of actors do all kinds of things. They'll poke all kinds of stuff in their eyes to make themselves cry. That's just being a smart actor, and I totally respect her for it. But what I learned is don't get caught up in the illusion and believe that you couldn't also do it. Like I love an amazing, talented acting performance. I love nothing more than for an actor to make me not see them, but to see the character and to feel what the character's feeling. And for me to for them to give me the room to feel those feelings and to get lost in that moment. I love it. That's why I love TV shows and movies and web series. And I love getting caught up in a story, in the character's life, and that the magic of that. I love creating it. I love being the audience member for it. So, but don't get so caught up in it that you're like, I could never do that, because there's a lot of freaking tricks in this industry. um, it reminds me of one last thing. I know I think I steered the topic away from what the final points was, but I work at a hospital that's in Hollywood. It's basically in Hollywood. It's very close to Hollywood. And what I find working in the hospital is like the reputation of the hospital is this big, magical, amazing place. And like famous people come to that hospital because of the reputation. But I see behind the scenes and I see the things in the hospital and like any hospital that are lacking, that are not as amazing, that are not as wonderful. And it reminds me of this moment I had many years ago. I was hanging out at the Kodak Theater, and it was a couple days before the Oscars. You know, the Kodak Theaters where they have the theater that they have the Oscars, right? So the building was decorated with Oscars, and I was walking down this walkway, and there was this giant Oscar, giant, shiny, beautiful Oscar on like a little pedestal. It looked like it should have been a fountain, except instead of water coming out of it, there was this giant, shiny Oscar in the middle. And I went over, I'm like looking at this giant Oscar, and I'm thinking about winning Oscars, and I'm thinking about being successful, and I'm sad about where I am in the industry. And I just like tap on this shiny Oscar, and it was hollow and plastic like a lawn ornament, like the Santa Clauses that people put on the front lawn at Christmas time. And to me, that is this industry. Do not be wowed by the appearance of it, because behind it, it's smoke and mirrors, it's fake, it's plastic, it's tricks and technique. But that's what makes it wonderful also. But it also means that it's not like there's an in and an out. It really is accessible to anyone. Everyone can find a place. I A quick shout out to my friend Nicole Girth. Sorry, she goes, what's her new last name? She got married. What's your new last name, Nicole? Um, she is got a genetic disorder called osteogenesis imperfecta. I don't think she would be sad me sharing that. She's a little person and she uses a wheelchair. She is an amazingly talented person. She's a wonderful, wonderful, talented person. Oh my gosh, Nicole Evans. Evans is her last name now. But I'm not sure whether she uses Evans or Girth as her stage name. But she has gotten a career going despite being a little person in a wheelchair. She is like a series regular. I think she works on Superstore. Um, and she is one of those people that like I met her and just her spirit was so amazing and her talent was so undeniable. And I told her, I was like, you've got to meet people. People have to just know you, because I knew that if people knew her and met her, she would get a career. And that is what has happened. People know her, they meet her, they love her, and now she has a career. And if you get so into yourself and the seriousness of your craft, if you think you're the next Daniel Day-Lewis and you're just going to take yourself so very seriously, you will miss the opportunity to be that light in the room, that person that people like, that person that people think of, that person that people want to be around. And people that will become famous and they won't think to help you. They won't think to include you because they don't remember you as that positive, loving, fun energy. So have more fun, but drink less.
Yeah.
All right. Have we done it?
Yeah. You pretty much answered most all of the questions that I had. Like, I was even gonna ask like any fun facts or like any last piece of advice, but no, you just kind of covered it all. We've went over everything, so thank you so much, and Oh, socials and website, anything where people can, get in touch and
Can
all that
find
good
me.
jazz.
So I do post on my personal Instagram. All I really post is an occasional photo of me and my kids. And every day that I go to work, I have a picture with my cat because my cat comes and sits on my lap in the morning and we take a selfie when I'm going to work. So if you want to see pictures of me in my work uniform with my cat, as long as he survives, he's kind of old, so we'll see. You can follow me on, I think it's just Sharon Savene on Instagram or on Facebook. And if you want to watch videos that will help people with breastfeeding, you can follow me on Sassy Lactation. That one is more of sort of like my creative outlet at this time. If you follow me on either of those, I'm sure as I create additional projects and additional links and things, those will be apparent there. But yeah, I mean, I am the only Sharon Savine in the world, very much in contrast to my maiden name, where I was one of thousands. But yeah, if you search Sharon Savine, it's pretty much all me.
Yeah. So as your outro or like your closing, just anything, like what would you want to close this out on?
Why do I want to close out on? Well, listen, if you've ever seen me in anything performing and you enjoyed it, or if anytime in the future you see me perform in anything and you enjoy it, then thank you for supporting me. And I'm so happy that you enjoyed it. Um, and that's a big part of why I do it. So I mean that's it. I mean I don't know how many people have ever seen me in anything besides like a Vicks commercial I did in 2009. So if your desire is to make it in the industry, then please go and make something. Show us what you can do. Be you, bring you, find you in the process, and just like Nike says, just do it. I guess just do it. All
Right
right,
on. Yeah. Um, I don't really have any like
all right. So
closing thoughts.
Should I just do the laptop slap? Are we done?
Um, I mean, I don't really have any closing like thoughts or anything of the sort. I don't have anything to close this out on. I think you pretty much took care of everything. So I'll just
All
say
right.
punch every day in the face, as my good friend Brad Storm would say. Love you, Brad. Hope you're doing well, my buddy. But yeah, see you
All
later,
right.
guys, and stay tuned for next time at Station Square. And yeah, I'm out of here. Whoosh. Take care.
Bye.